welcome everybody. This is a bit of a different edition of our usual Service Design Network meetup that we've been doing the past year. We're very excited to actually have a very great panel today, and we also have a different format for today. So this is the Going Glocal Meetup. This is the first of its kind. We've never done this before. This is a global event from the Service Design Network. This is a members-only event for all of you who are joining us today from all over the globe, we hope. So let's see if I can. So today we are co-hosting this event with the Dallas chapter as well as the Monterrey chapter. So I'm Greg Laclufi, and we have Gabriela. Is there Gabriela over? Ah, we can hear a baby. So quickly, I want to introduce the two chapters. So we are Service Design Network Dallas chapter. So I'm Greg Laclufi, and we have Brandon, Christopher, and Brenda. And on the Monterrey side, we have Gabriela, Veronica, Mirna, Maria, and Penelope. So we will be your host today, and we hope that you enjoy the content and you're going to have a great time understanding more about the topic and its subject today. This event is recorded. I have to tell you this. As Brenda was mentioning earlier, if you are on video and if you do something, you may show up on the video. You need to be aware of that. We're going to try to keep everybody muted so there is no disturbance. This recording will be available probably tonight or maybe tomorrow through the Service Design Network website. And it will be available to a larger audience next month. But we want it to be a members-only audience this time. So it's a bit of a different format for us. Today is going to be the first of a new series. So this is going to be the global virtual event. So today we're going to be covering the North America, Central America, South America. And I want to let you know that in April, our Finnish chapter will be hosting the Europe, Middle East, Africa event. And in June, Tokyo will be hosting the Asia Pacific event. So we're going to try to cover all the global network and bring you some really great service design content. I'm going to turn over to our friend Brian Gillespie out of Boston, who is going to talk for a couple of seconds about this new series of events that we're doing now to bring forth the service design knowledge and share this to our members. Brian?
Excellent, good. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first of our Glocal Meetups. We have Kendall at HQ for the super title of the combination of global and local. So I want to first of all thank you all for being members. My role on the Service Design Network's leadership team is really to focus on the membership experience and figure out ways to give you guys more value for your membership. It's because of your financial support, your intellectual support, your spiritual support, that we are able to do all the things that we can do for you and for service design in general. So when I speak to members, and we at HQ try and speak as often as we can, we ask, what's the value of the Service Design Network to you? Why did you join? And the answer we most frequently get is, I joined to learn from the experience of others. And as you can see, there are a lot of us. We have more than 45 chapters around the world. That's a lot of knowledge and experience to learn from. And so, as Greg pointed out, the purpose of these and the goal of these meetings is really to globalize and localize that knowledge and experience. Greg has mentioned that we have 3 coming up, and we can confirm that Finland will partner with Norway on the second event, which will be on April 20th. June 15th will be the second event, and the Japan team will team up with another chapter in the Asia Pacific region. We will take a pause then because we've got a big conference coming up at the end of the year, but we will look forward to everybody coming back together again after the conference, and maybe possibly have a total global chapter meetup where all 3 regions meet and share stories about the conference. So what I wanted to share with you today is, like, we in HQ and the leadership team and the chapter leadership teams have discussed many ideas for how we can use these meetups. And so what I'm going to do right now is very quickly, in a Pechakucha format, give you and share with you some of the ideas that we've come up with. And the reason for that is that we'd like your feedback on what content would be most appreciated by you in these meetups as we move forward. I'm going to share them with you right now. At the end, I'm going to put the list on our chat. I'm going to ask you to rate them and make some comments about them if you've got time over the next hour. And if you don't have time, email me or anybody on the leadership team afterwards. So quickly, so we can get to Jamin and all the amazing content and thoughts and leadership that he's going to share, and the team, I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. So this is what we have today. We've got a guest forum with Gabriela, with Birgit, and with Jamin. And we've got Greg is going to moderate this discussion. We're going to have a really interesting conversation around the future of service design. So this is one open idea that will be a sort of a very easy theme to recur on. We also can invite a very specific individual presenter, somebody who's a rock star in the service design world, somebody who's can share their knowledge and experience, thought leaders from our world. The third one, which is an idea based around case studies. So we had the idea that the local chapters who are co-hosting the event will each share a local case study, which will give a sense of what the local service design market is about and maybe open themselves up to some Q&A. Idea number 4 is a book club. So in advance, we could select a new service design book and decide that we're going to discuss that book. We can do that in a session or in a breakout. So we can have our virtual book club. This is a common enough practice at our physical chapter meetings these days. The fifth idea is around professional challenges. So a lot of the conversations we hear from that there are various challenges to practicing service design. So what are they? Would you like to discuss them with fellow members? Would you like to have an open discussion addressing these day-to-day challenges to practicing service design? Career opportunities. On our website right now, we list open positions. Maybe our members would like to list those open positions in their companies today. Or maybe folks would like to say, hey, raise my hand, I'm looking for work. And maybe there's a way for us to matchmake our members with each other. Coaching and mentorship. I know that we will have a diverse attendance at these events. So it's possible that when you meet and see somebody who's joined this event, you might like to ask them to mentor you in some particular topic, or maybe you'd like to offer yourself as a mentor. Global trends in service design. We know that we're going to benefit from folks from all over the world who are going to be sharing their local stories. We know that the Future of Service Design report touches on many of these trends, but it would be nice to hear what's the impact of these in each of the markets that are going to be co-hosting our events. Further, of course, we can build on what we've started on today, and that's part of the idea for our next two events, is that there's such a wealth of material in the Future of Service Design report that I think it could feed us with inspiration for many, many future meetups. And of course, the final one then is member networking. Well, that's what this is all about. But this is more of a question. How might we enable this event to be a better networking event? I mean, right now we're doing a lot of talking at each other. How do we talk with each other? Breakout rooms, other ways for us to sort of extend the relationship that we're now forming amongst ourselves today. So there are the ideas that we've developed so far. As I said, I'm going to put these in the chat. I'm going to ask you to think about them. And we'd love to hear from you what you value the most. And then we'll look into how we might start to integrate them into the meetups in the future. So that's it. That's all I wanted to do today, is to share these ideas with you, get your feedback, because it's your meetup. And you need to make the most of it. So I'll stop sharing right there and I'll pass it back to Greg and the team. And thank you. I look forward to hearing your feedback. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Brian. So this was Brian, and we're going to put some links in the chat so you can actually just go ahead and do this. Let's move forward with our topic today. It's a very, very important topic. This is the future of service design. We decided to have some pretty major opening topic this year. 2020 was difficult for a lot of us, and we brought a lot of those topics last year that were either very tactical, like blueprinting and interviews, and some more higher one, like COVID and government space. But we feel like 2021 is a good time for us to talk about a very, very broad topic. So in this respect, we've actually decided to discuss the future of service design. And we are going to put in the chat right now, Brendan is going to put the link to the Future of Service Design report that was done by the Cologne International School of Design. If you have not read it yet, I strongly urge you to read it. I've read it several times now, and I'm still finding some gold content in there. It's a really, really interesting topic, and some really, really smart people contributed to this report. So if you haven't read it yet, please go ahead and download it. Brendan's going to put a link to it. It's a very, very deep and thorough report on the future of service design. You can see some of the topics over here around like ethics and sustainability. We obviously don't have the time to go through all of those, so we have chosen to discuss only 3 core topics today. The other sessions may cover other topics in Europe and Asia. But today we're going to be discussing the business of service design, service design education, and service design ethics. And our panel is going to discuss that, and I'm going to introduce the panel now. So we are very, very fortunate to have Birgit Mager, who is the president of SDN, and of course, professor of the Cologne International School of Design. We have Jamin Hegman, who is the VP Experience Strategy at Capital One, and Gabriela Salinas, who is also the CEO of Sweden Mexico, also a professor at University of Iberoamericana. The reason why we have those 3 very distinguished service designers is we're trying to bring forth a different lens. So Birgit will talk more on a global level because obviously she's in Germany and she's oversees the global network. Jamin will probably speak more to the North Americas, what it means to the North Americas in terms of like business and ethics. And Gabriela will most likely talk to what those topics mean to the South American market. So that's the idea of why we have 3 speakers with 3 different lenses. If you want, I would like to have Birgit, Jamin, and Gabriela introduce yourself. I'm assuming everybody knows who they are, but it's an assumption. So, hey, Jamin, do you mind introducing yourself quickly?
Hello, everybody. Great to see you here. Thanks for coming. My name is Jamin Hegman. As Greg said, thank you for the introduction. And I work at Capital One, which is a bank in the US. I'm based in New York City. The head of experience strategy, which is a core team within our 600-person design team at Capital One. The role of me and my team is to help support the maturity and quality of design at scale. So across all the different lines of business that we have at Capital One. And I've also been a part of the Service Design Network and am on the leadership team for the Service Design Network, primarily contributing to our global conference. So I have helped host and put on those conferences since 2008. And so many of you may recognize me from that, and good to see you all here.
Birgit? You still can talk. Okay. Gabriela, can you introduce yourself for a second?
Yeah, hi. My name is Gabriela. I'm currently in Monterrey, Mexico. I'm part of the Monterrey Chapter. I'm the co-founder of Service Design Mexico. We are a company focused on promoting service design here in our region. We do this mostly by educational efforts. We have several courses and we teach, and we also collaborate with different universities. We are also hosting a conference called Frontstage Conference. We try to promote the knowledge in Spanish and to try to have these conversations in our country. And last year, I was also part of the team collaborating with the Service Design Conference. And I think that's it.
Very good. Thank you. Birgit, are you?
No, I'm unmuted. Thank you so much. My name is Birgit Mager. I have a background in psychology, in systemic consultancy, in organizational development and human resources. That was my first life. Then I had the chance to step into service design in 1994 already. And ever since, I'm teaching service design at the Cologne International School of Design in Germany. I was fortunate to meet other service designers in that very, very pioneer world in the early 2000s, and we decided to create the Service Design Network. It was a very small network in the beginning, with a couple of universities, a couple of agencies. And in 2008, we decided to open that network to the world. We had the first conference in 2008 with already 230 participants. And ever since, the network has grown with the help of so many people from the leadership team, the chapters, the members. It's an amazing community. And what I love about that community is that they are really open-minded, fun people to be with. And I've been with Jamin, I think the two of us are the only persons that have been to every Service Design Network conference, I assume. And every year it's a pleasure to be there, mainly because of the people, but of course also because of the evolution of service design. So I'm really enjoying this initiative, and I hope to get more connected to our members and understand better what we can do for the members of the network. Even though I also think the members are doing something for themselves just by being part of that community, because we have been promoting service design for the last 17 years, and I think it's worth it. And I would love the network to continue doing this.
Very good. Well, since we get your microphone working, let's start with you. So we're going to start with the future of the business service design. So Birgit, let us know, how will service designers need to skill up to evolve from designers to key management consultants? Again, thinking that you probably more have a global view, and then Jamin will tell us what this means to him more in North America, and Gabriela more in South America, if there are differences.
Okay, so first of all, I would doubt that service designers should become key management consultants. That is not, that's a given role. And why would you want to be that? You want to be a designer, but you want to be a designer who has impact on the future of organizations. And in order to have that impact on the future of organizations, you need to be heard in the boardrooms. You need to get access to the decision makers. So I do not see that you should become key management consultants, but we should develop strategies in how to get more impact and more influence. Now, the management education and technology education, they have bought into service design, at least partially. So they teach design thinking, they teach service design. I am wondering, how much do we learn about business and about management in our basic academic education, but also in the practical world? In order to skill up, you need to be curious to learn. You need to be really curious to learn the language of your clients. I think that is something that asks for curiosity, also courage. But I have brought 5 tips. If you want to evolve, to have impact on the key, on the boardroom, you have to remember to see the big picture and to think in a strategic way. So if you are invited to do a small project for better customer experience, you have to see, what is the bigger picture? How does that relate to the positioning of the company, to the market? And what does that mean on a strategic level? How can you bring the work you are doing on the next level? So see the big picture, think strategic. Talk numbers too. Not only numbers, but talk numbers too. If you don't talk numbers, it will be difficult. People will not take you as seriously as they would if they know what impact service design can achieve, also in a quantitative way. Have evidence for that impact. Have some cases in your suitcase that you can unpack and show the world what service design can do. It's not necessarily all the projects that you have done, but grab into our case study library. Take those projects where we have measured the impact in numbers as well. And last but not least, build alliances and help your clients to be heroes. So those people that give you the job should be heroes afterwards, and they should be your advocates. They should be the ambassadors for service design in their organization, helping you to move up the ladder. That's it from my side.
Very good. So Jamin, do you agree, disagree? I know you have a bit of a different role. You're working at Capital One, so you probably always have to manage up, so to speak. So maybe you have a different vision of what this means, especially in North America.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of alignment with what Birgit said. I similarly agree that the goal isn't to become a management consultant or even to be a business leader. I think it's important to continue to be a designer I think that's the value that we bring, whether you're coming from a design background, service designer, or you're coming in from another field, you're still in that designer space, and that's the value that we bring into the business realm where design isn't as recognized, particularly at higher levels. So I agree actually with most of what Birgit said. I think the thing that I was thinking about as she was talking was in the education. I studied service design when I was in grad school. It was a lot focused on the process of service design, the methodologies, and the practice, and which I think is a great starting point. And this might be getting to future questions in this panel, but particularly as I don't know if skilling up also relates to increase experience and maturity as a designer. So I'm in an executive position within Capital One, and I still consider myself at core a service designer, but I am playing a leadership and a management role, and that's the areas that are the most challenging for me to navigate and figure out. Okay, how do I bring this thing, service design, and marry it with the other responsibilities that are expected of someone in a leadership position in an organization, which, yeah, being able to tie into, as Birgit said, the broader company strategy and being able to show and demonstrate how you're going to impact the bottom line is hugely important, and becomes increasingly important when you're in those positions. So I mean, I think we don't. I don't know that it's. I think it's a great question. I don't know if it's possible to really learn the leadership skills, when you're first entering, but definitely as you graduate as a service designer. That's where I've been focusing a lot. I mean, even the books on my desk over here are about leading change, not so much, how to do service design.
Very good. Gabriela, do you have a different opinion maybe, or is it something that you agree on?
Yes, and before replying, I just wanted to make a very quick note that my perspective is more as a Latin American than as a South American, because Mexico is in a strange place on the map. We are in North America, and we are the neighbors of the USA. So we have a lot of influence of what is happening in North America, but we are also Latin. And I think that a lot of things culturally work very differently, even among all the other countries in the South American region. So thinking about that, I think that we can see that service design is becoming increasingly important in organizations on a strategic level. I think we have all seen these graphs about design maturity that look like stairs. The one by the Danish Center or Envision. And usually like the last step of the ladder is when a company, the organization considers service design as a driver of strategy. And I think, at least speaking from the Mexican point of view, and I always like to say this quote by William Gibson that says that the future is here, but it's just not evenly distributed. I think the truth is that in most companies in Mexico don't even know what strategic design is yet, or what service design is yet. And even those that do, even those that have their service design team, probably don't have like the budgets or enough designers. They are probably doing still like guerrilla research. And this happens even in multinational companies, that even in companies that are in the US and are also in Mexico, they don't have like the budgets to think about this. So I probably only have like the question still on my mind, how can we get there at the same time as the rest of the world?
Very good. Thank you so much. So let's move forward to the next question, still around the business of design. Let's see. Let me see how to say it. So what will it take for service design practitioners to be involved in decision-making at the strategic C-suite level? We just talked about this a little bit. Do you want to tell us a bit more about this, Birgit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that much more to add. I think there's one book that I refer to quite often. It's Bowl and Gallopy, Managing as Designing. And I think that if we understand that management is changing and that managers have to become more and more designers that design the future through innovation, through change management, then we have to think that we have to bring the design skills that are needed in order to be creative and courageous about the future to that management. So I think, yes, we have to make sure that we enable organizations and people within these organizations to use design in an appropriate way and know when they need the help of a professional service designer or designer to support them.
Very good. Jamin, do you want to add up?
Yeah, I think along those lines, sorry, I'm not just blatantly disagreeing and making this more interesting of a dialogue, but I think, yeah, sort of the flip side of the previous question is, what do executives in the C-suite need to learn about design, and how can we help support them in their understanding and to what you're just saying about and how they leverage the expertise and recognize when they need that expertise. Because I don't, there's a lot of roles in an organization that are needed, and there's some great people that I work with that are not service designers, and their skills are great for what they do. And I think we're just coming in and saying, hey, there's design too, and it's not just operating at the execution level. There's a suite of capabilities that designers bring, and as you move up, the types of capabilities can be different than maybe what we're doing, very close to the customer even. So helping to facilitate strategic conversations or get to a tangible future for the business. There are ways that we can help that, but there needs to be an understanding of that on the executive side. And that is something that, going back to what Gabriela just said, just to give you a little bit of peace of mind, like, I feel like I say this a lot because everybody feels like they're behind. I think we're all on the journey and we're not at destination. So, I think the value of this network and everyone here that's motivated and passionate about this is that we're all helping to move us in the right direction, and we're not there. So I would just flip it around and say, like, yeah, part of our role is to help educate and support on the executive side as to what they should know, what they can do, and then how to leverage the expertise that they have.
Very good. Gabriela, do you want to add to what Jenny was saying?
Yeah, if Jamin says that we're not there yet, I think in Mexico or in Latin America, we are far behind. But I think it's also a matter of just adding to what Jamin was saying, that who is making these decisions and why is it just the C-suite level? And if designers have like a long road to get there, what role are designers playing in this transition? And I think that thinking about designers as facilitators, and probably not these decision makers, but just facilitators on the process of making those decisions, I think that's just a great step towards that, and help those decision makers to make better choices that considers the users, that really think about the problems that they're solving, trying to bring these perspectives that we have, and like all of the mindset of service design, because not everyone is going to be a service designer, but everyone can do service design. And I think Birgit wants to add to that.
So why do you think Mexico in this respect is actually behind? What do you think? Is it like a cultural thing? Is this like a maturity thing? And Birgit, maybe you can chime in on that.
I think it's mostly a maturity thing. How people are learning about the value of this. I think a lot of people in Latin America have to see the success in other places before believing that it is actually possible. So they are waiting to see if other companies are having success with it before adopting.
Okay. Birgit?
Yeah. I would like to disagree with the role of the service designer as a facilitator. That's something that I hear far too often. And I'm scared that in the future, maybe designers are just the masters of processes and toolkits and facilitate through workshops and projects. And that's not what I would like to see as the role of a service designer. I want to see the service designer as somebody who reframes, who helps people to reframe, who pushes them, who tickles them, who inspires them, who pulls and pushes and yeah. And there's this old marketing formula, Maya, most advanced and yet acceptable. I think the service designer should be most advanced when it comes to being a revolutionary in the sense of a better services, and yet as acceptable that he doesn't lose the organization and his clients. So I think it's much more than being a facilitator. Okay,
Jamin, you want to chime on this or?
I agree. I think I said facilitator, but I wasn't using that exclusively as the role. And I absolutely agree. I think, providing the inspiration to change is a huge role that we play. And I was, as Gabrielle was talking, I was looking at the question again and thinking like in terms of where we are, and I can't speak for Mexico, but there are a lot more designers in, I don't know if I would say C-suite, but in executive positions. And most of the recommendations on how to really integrate design into an organization include having a leader at the C-suite, because if you don't have that sort of says something about where you think design is in the organization, but that is increasingly happening, and it's happening at Capital One, which is great, and that will create the influence and the expectations of where design should be. But I do think there's one of the challenges I face, and I know other design executives face, is that this is a new space to be in. Like, it's a lot of us come up from what Birgit was talking about of like, hey, we processes and methods and talking to customers and but like navigating an organization of 50,000 people in my case, trying to figure out like where you fit in the broader context of business initiatives and how you move yours forward. Like those are business related skills. And going back to the original question, like those are things that you have to learn. And there's various ways you can do that. I would just say, like, don't lose the design expertise that you bring. It's not the goal to become a business person in the same way that a business person is. Like they have their role and they do their thing, but we need to learn some of that, but bring the design expertise. But I'm hopeful in terms of what I'm seeing, and again, increasingly there's more executives, and that will have it's like the snowball effect of just creating more demand and expectation, and maybe Mexico will see that and be right fast followers of the rest of the world.
So let's talk more about education. We kind of bring up the fact now this was a lot of education to be done, but let's talk specifically about education next. How will service design education evolve without losing the scriptural design? So we kind of like talked a little bit about this. Now let's talk about, and let's see in the chat we actually have educators who actually do this for a living. So Birgit, tell us more about the evolution of service design education.
Well,
we have more like academically trained service designers now, right? So 10 years ago, there was very little schooling, especially in Americas. Now we actually have schools actually have majors in service design, and they actually do train formally service designers.
Exactly. I think education throughout the last 25 years has evolved in an amazing way in design schools. Whereas I think that the transparency of design schools, what is the curricula, what is the type of service designer they are aiming at, should be better. I think we should have much more conversations in the community of universities, maybe through Cumulus, in order to create a better understanding of what levels of service design, with which competencies, with which roles do we have. But it's growing, and it's a bit of an uncoordinated market. I know that Maurizio Manales is here from SCAD. He is supporting the SDN in building an alliance between the academic organizations in order to create these conversations. What are the syllabus? What are the objectives? What's the best practices? But also, is service design now growing into other educational programs? As I mentioned earlier, when you look at business programs or technology programs, you will find pieces and modules, sometimes even big modules of service design, which I think is nice because it makes it a lot easier for service designers to work in organizations if there is a basic understanding of what is service design, or even knowing that it does exist. And last but not least, just to make it short, service design is starting at an earlier age. And we had a nice internal meeting a while ago, and everybody said we need to push that development to have service design in high schools, maybe even in elementary schools, because service design is more than a profession, it's an attitude. And if that attitude is taught in a very early age, when children are still curious, they are co-creative, they are visual. And when they are encouraged to use service design as an approach with everything that you do, it again will help to make our world a better place. So we are seeing that service design goes into those earlier phases of education.
So Jamin, as a design leader, tell us more about, because you hire service designers, are you seeing the education you need in order for you to get your job done, or you think there may be some knowledge gaps in terms of education when you actually hire service designers out of school now?
I mean, I think education does a good job of creating a foundation. One of the things that I think is challenging about service design is that there is in reality, a complexity to it. You're talking about lots of different parts and pieces. You're often talking about navigating an organization, different channels, different people, different groups. That is hard to come by in school, and even working. It often takes some years of being in an organization to understand how things work. So those are the things that I think are the most challenging for when we do hire people directly out of school. Like, they might have really great design craft skills and they know the service design tools and they've done some projects, but being ready to like do that in an organization and navigate everything that's involved with that complexity are the things that are more challenging. Sometimes when I talk to early students, is like, hey, you might want to consider what kind of path you want to take. You go into an agency, for example, it's going to be a little bit more constrained in terms of what you have to deal with, and it might be an opportunity for you to hone your skills. Going in-house in a large organization will help you more quickly understand what it takes to get that work done. So you can get value in going in either direction, but it's going to be slower in the internal side because you're dealing again with a lot of more reality and complexity, which can be hard for students who don't have a particular level of just professional maturity coming right out of school.
Are you talking about like hard skills, soft skills, like communication, collaboration, the kind of like the softness of the skills that may not be like, as you say, easy to come by in school?
Yeah, I think there's a degree to that, but it's also just, you know, that understanding of how large systems work and change, and that familiarity with what it takes to get things done. How do you wrangle multiple stakeholders who have competing agendas? I mean, we're usually, when we're doing early service design work, like, you're given a brief, everybody's aligned to it, nobody's got an alternative objective, and you can just execute on the work. And you know, when you throw that into like hundreds of objectives, everybody's, you know, scattered for time, it can be very disorienting for people coming out of school.
So Gabriela, let's switch to you. And of course, you are coming from the academic work as you're a professor at university. So what is your take on what Jamin just mentioned?
I think I have to give just a little bit of context of what is happening. So right now in Mexico, the design education is still very traditional. So you will only find like graphic design and industrial design. There's, of course, a couple of universities, the ones where I collaborate, that they have some master's degree in strategic design. And just recently, like a couple of years ago, they added one course in service design, just to give like the overall view of what it is and how can they do it. And I think that the risk with that is that designers might think that service design is just the tools and the methods. And if you just check like the syllabus, even from university, you see that they are usually trying to like to create designers that are makers, that like even the courses that you have when you're studying graphic design is like screen printing and photography and do things with your hands. And so it's normal to think of service design like, okay, so you have this tool that you have to fill out and step by step, and that's it. And I think that's very hard for them, these designers to have like this mindset shift, to think of like the business challenges and organizational complexity, like Jamin was saying, and like to think, to do research and to have all these soft skills is very hard to do that shift. And I'm eager to see what happens when this changes.
So it's a perfect segue to the next question I have, which is talk about the service design is by nature interdisciplinary, right? So how will we ensure that service design education will be interdisciplinary from the start? So as Jamin and Birgit were mentioning, we don't want to have designers just do one thing by themselves, you know, in a class. So how do we bring this kind of like working with other people culture, Birgit?
Yeah, I think several aspects. I have to admit, I still love my university, even after 25 years. Not everything about it, but it's an integrated design program, and it has been for 25 years. So the students are not service designers. They study different aspects, design management, they go into graphic interface design, they go into product design even, and they have a lot of freedom to configure their own profiles. And those students that go into service design do have skills in other design disciplines. So even from the design perspective, I think service design is interdisciplinary. You might be able to use graphic programs to make beautiful things. You might want to build prototypes with your hands. So you need design skills. And then our education is very project oriented. So the students from the very first semester work in projects, and not only first semester with first semester, but we mix them all through the semester. So the young students learn from the old students and the other way around. And we very often have external partners. So they usually work on real tasks, and then they have to work with the HR department and with the IT department and with the whatsoever. And they sometimes suffer really badly. So they know what it means to work interdisciplinary and to learn the language of other people and to really get a shared understanding of the objectives. So they learn interdisciplinarity by doing. I think that's the only way you learn it. Talking about interdisciplinarity is kind of like, so what?
So Jamin, before we get to this, I work with you at Capital One, and we know we have to be definitely like working with other people, but in the same time, we're starting to see some, I would say, specialization to the service design. So we're starting to have some designers who actually going to be more on the first double diamond, and some specialize more the second half double diamond. So some designers going to be more like, hey, I do mostly research, and I kind of go towards prototyping and doing stuff like this. So how do you navigate that at Capital One? How do you have designer that can do everything and yet specialize into one thing, like the T-shape?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's a different question if you're talking about a place like Capital One, again, where there's 600 designers on the team, and you can have a specialization. So you can actually look at that nuance and say, hey, these people are better at the front end of design. These people are better at the back end. These people are more service design oriented. These people are more detailed and have that specialization. Like when I worked at a design agency, Adaptive Path with 30 people, we hired people that could do that full spectrum. And it's harder to find people that can work at all those different levels somewhat equally or try to balance that out. But we have the affordance to be able to look at people and go like, all right, well, let's put them in a place where they're going to be most effective for the work that we need to do, because we have other people that can fill in those gaps.
So how do you manage to get somebody who's going to be like in your case? It's about your case. It's not unusual. There's some large team. So how do you get them to work collectively with large numbers of people within the design team and on one very small piece of the project? Is it difficult?
So, first of all, I'm going to maybe answer your question in a roundabout way. There is an expectation that all of our designers are familiar with service design. We've done training across the organization. We've got a lot of good continued ongoing training about service design. And for many other aspects of design, we regardless of what your focus is, there's an assumption that you've got some familiarity with, some design strategy or design research, prototyping, service design. That might not be your strength. So we do have service designers. We do not have like tons of them, but we don't need tons of them because everybody has some degree of it and can do and integrate service design methods and tools into their work. And then we'll have service designers for like really like looking at large, across the ecosystem types of projects that require that expertise. And those folks are going to be more familiar and comfortable working with multiple disciplines as it were. But I mean, we work interdisciplinary from bottom up, with our team structure, product tech design, data, and then upwards. So it's not a terribly new concept to be working interdisciplinary as a service designer. It just might mean that you're working more well, I mean, even when we do product design, we're still working with legal and risk and compliance, and we're a bank, so we've got a lot of that stuff. You really have to work interdisciplinary to get some of the things out the door.
So you've actually chosen to bring service design to other capabilities to somewhat train them a little bit to know enough to be dangerous. So when they actually get involved into the process, they are more like prepared, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we have parts of our business that like service design tools and methodologies are built into the operating system of the business. So it's not even coming, well, I mean, it came from design, but it's now embedded into the ways that we work. We operate from a journey. We create visions of what we want the experience to be. We have blueprints to understand. The translation be the front and back stage. Yeah, I mean, and it's not, there's still work to do across the entire organization, but in pockets, we've definitely made a lot of advances in bringing that to other disciplines. And I think, going back to what we were talking about with the executives, there is a challenge of like, well, how much do you need to know when do you rely on an expert versus something you can do yourself. I don't necessarily think those are different questions than like research and interacting with customers and how, that's sort of a debate. There's a lot about design that's just very, very human-centered and can be democratized to other people. And I think the way I think about service design, because we're not really talking about the other aspect of education, is that, there are service designers that come into service design not from a design background and are able to operate and advance their career and their expertise. And to me, that's the real distinction between, are you a service designer or aren't you? It's like, well, are you dedicating your craft, your profession to service design, or is it just something you do in the context of your work? Because we have product managers that were like, yeah, you should use a journey map. It doesn't make them a service designer. But we do have service designers that is their job. Like they live and breathe it, and they're advancing their skills and craft. And that to me is a real distinction.
Gabriela, what do you think about it?
I think that there's always this question, should designers code or should designers do research? And we rarely ask, should HR do service design, And I really love to see in our courses, people from other areas like engineering or marketing or operations that come to our boot camps. And I was thinking about, there's a quote in the report that I really liked that said that the complex challenges that we are facing right now cannot be solved by YouTube tutorials. And I will add to that it's just not that, but we also can't solve them alone. These challenges are too big, and we are seeing that this past year, just with the pandemic and everything that is happening around the world with social unrest, and companies have to quickly adapt to a lot of challenges. And it's definitely not just designers that will be doing this, and also not just business or not just engineering. We have to collaborate, and it will be easier and better if everyone knows these tools, but if also we can leverage the strengths of all areas. Very
good. It's almost 1 o'clock our time. If it's okay, we need to switch gear and talk about ethics. So what will make a service ethical, Birgit?
Well, I hate to rush through the ethics because it is a topic that we should be spending much more time on.
We have 30 minutes. We have time.
Oh, I thought we only have until 1.
Well, we can go long.
Oh, okay.
So take your time.
Okay. So what makes a service ethical? It depends. It depends. That's all I can say. And when I look at other disciplines, like, for example, software engineering or management, they start developing their own tools to reflect on ethics through different lenses. I work very intensely in an interdisciplinary research project with software engineering, and I'm happy to share that in the chat later. They are developing questionnaires and grids that help you to reflect project-wise what are ethical concerns that you should be considering, because it's a huge difference if you are developing a digital health service or if you are developing a cleaning service for a hospital. The digital health service, you can have a lot of negative impact on many things, from sustainability to privacy and data protection. If you work in a cleaning process for hospitals, it's about employee dignity, it's about salary, it's about safety, it's about hygiene. So it's a huge field that opens there. And for some reason, my computer is opening lots and lots of programs right now. Maybe because I mentioned privacy and data protection.
Maybe.
Siri heard that and thought, oh, let's open all the programs that are available.
So Jamin, you and I worked in financial services for a while, and we both know that there's a very thin gray line, right? So it's not because you can that you should. There's a lot of tools available to companies that may not be the right thing to do, right? It's not necessarily unethical, but how do you navigate the ethics space, knowing that you have some tools available to you that you could easily use?
Sorry, say that last bit again.
Which part?
How to navigate the ethical space.
So there are a lot of tools that you can use, like, for example, like browser history. You can actually purchase browser history from users. How do you navigate the fact that in an ideation session, somebody can say like, hey, would it be great if we do this? And you can, it's not illegal. But how do you navigate the fact that us as designers, we actually are responsible or have the duty to kind of push back and say, hey, this is not really the right thing to do. We shouldn't be having this tool that allows us to do these kind of things to our consumers. So how do you make it ethical?
It's such a, I think the ethics question is really difficult and needs, to Birgit's point, like we need a lot more time to continue to focus on it. And there's so many different dimensions to how you tackle it. We have an internal mission to do good at Capital One, which I think is a great starting point. Just that, like that is our starting point. Is that we're here to do good in banking, and so that's an overarching lens to how we make decisions. And is this good? Is this going to benefit people, or is this going to hurt people? Is it the right thing to do? And I think the interesting thing with ethics is that, it depends on the point of view of the organization or the individual person of what's ethical and what's not. And
so maybe let me ask you a question a bit more pointed. So what about consequences the service may have in the future, and how do you minimize the potential adverse outcomes? So let's talk about you at Capital One. You have some choices to make. Some of them may have consequences that are going to be not ethical. So how do you navigate that space?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we increasingly focusing on is the question of like, what is the unintended consequence? And having that be part of the process. So we, often when we're being trained, or what we focus on in design is the optimum happy path, where everything works the way it should and everyone's happy. It's a win-win-win for all stakeholders. But I think we need to use the same creativity in, okay, what could go wrong? And that's something that, internally we're considering how we build those kind of practices into our design practice. As our team is actually called experience design. So our charge is to focus on what are the experiential consequences, good or bad. I don't think that, or we don't have a universal answer to that across the organization, but it is something that is on our list of what we need to put in place, either at least in guidance, if not, some kind of governance for how we consider those things, particularly in light of the various ways that you could address different ethical questions, whether it's social justice, whether it's artificial intelligence, machine learning.
So this makes back to the education question I had earlier. So do you actually take your designers through an ethics class? Do you actually just bring them together? Hey, let's talk about ethics, because they don't necessarily have an ethical class in school, right? So is that something you push forward to make them understand ethics, what's right, what's wrong, what could be right, what could be wrong, proactively, or you kind of like let it develop through the process? Well,
we work for a bank, so we have a lot of training around what's right and what's wrong. Some of it is legal, and some of it is just how we want our people to behave and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So that we do have in place overarching. I think for me, as someone who's responsible for how we do design at Capital One, what we have on our roadmap is, what kinds of training should we have as designers that influence the way that we run our projects and our work. We haven't said explicitly we need an ethical design training, but we do have on our roadmap this year to look at what kinds of training and things we want to build into our processes that are beyond the, do human-centered design, ideate solutions, validate them, prototype, etc., that ensure that we feel good about the experiences we're creating in the world and have considered what might be the unintended consequences of those.
Very good. Gabriela, so as a professor, do you actually just bring that forth to your students and understand that it's not because you can that you should, in the ideation process, for example?
I think that for students and also for designers that are at companies that are yet not talking about ethics in everywhere in the process, not just ideation, in research or in different moments, I think what I like to tell them is to have two questions around when discussing this. And one question is, who is responsible and for whom are we doing this? And for the first question is who is responsible to bring these conversations on board? Who is responsible for, if you're going to do some research, to really check if the questions you're doing are the good questions, if the process and the privacy of the information is being done well. If you are really looking at the participants, like you say, at the eye level, if you're really trying to understand them and not judging people. We know that all of these problems are wicked problems and are involved with a lot of social, political, and so on, and that makes it very hard for designers to do this. And the other way to look at it is for whom, who are these people that we are trying to consider. And we usually don't think beyond our biases or beyond the people that are similar to us. Even in Latin American companies, you know that even the top management, the C-suite are usually white people, even in Latin America. So just considering that Mexicans and Latin Americans are very different, even if they are in different cities, and so I think those two questions I like to bring in with students and with designers that are at these companies. Very
good. Birgit, before we switch to the Q&A, I want to give you a chance to kind of close up the look on ethics. I know it's very important to you, so I want you to talk a bit more about the ethical, responsibility we have as designers.
I think many trend reports today talk about the ethical capitalism, saying that the ethics will be more and more important for the future of organizations. And I think we as service designers play a key role in bringing the topic of ethics into the organizations and into the projects. And I don't think that we do enough of that, neither in education nor in practice. I think it should be on the in the design process, like a continuous question, which are ethical issues that we are touching on in this phase of the project. And I totally agree with Gabriela. It's throughout the whole process. In the very beginning, do you have the right people on board? Do they represent the different relevant audiences? In the research, are we respecting our humans that we are engaging in the research? We had in Toronto at the 2019 conference, many conversations about the question on what is the power dynamics between service designers as researchers and the people that they are working with. Do we really take them serious? Are we open with them? Do we actively co-create, or do we just explore, take some information and then move on? So throughout the whole process, there is ethical issues that in the service design process should be put on the table much more systematically. So I believe that there is some research and some development to be done for us as a community. And maybe we can dedicate an issue of Touchpoint in this year to the topic of ethics in order to collect also existing knowledge and existing research from the service design community and from others and learn from it.
Very good. So if it's okay with you, we're going to start getting some questions from the attendees. Robin, do you have a question for the panel?
I do. And let's make sure I got the first one. I think this one's from David Russo for Jamin specifically, and we can open it up to others. But service design in the US seems to be very prevalent in the financial services, which I know you and I are both aware of. And it's growing in healthcare and insurance. Is there another space that you see adopting service design practices more industry-wide?
I mean, those are obviously the big ones, and I think because of the complexity of the spaces. But you also see the Airbnbs of the world that have kind of a service design mindset from the start with their designer founders, and increasingly service design being part of the startup process. I think it's I don't know. I know that it's prevalent in healthcare and financial services, but I don't think that it's exclusive to those.
There was a follow-up on that same question from Nick, and asking more specifically on with COVID trends, what industries are beginning to test the service design waters across, and this is across the whole panel, if anybody has some input on that. Have there been any catalysts that have caused service design to spread maybe recently?
Birgit?
Pass on.
Yeah, I don't know that COVID has really changed the need or trajectory of service design. I mean, it's still the opportunity and the journey that we're on collectively, I think, is the same. I mean, the services that need, I mean, for us, for example, in Capital One, I mean, we needed to change a lot of our services because of COVID. It didn't change the way we think about service design, but the way we needed to respond and the constraints were different. So I don't know that it's like created a new path or industry or something like that that's now more in need of service design. I feel like it's all there. Maybe in the land, or the immediate environment of doing that work has changed.
Yeah, I will even dare to say that at least in Mexico, what happened was the opposite, that a lot of companies were focusing on digital. And there's this notion that for digital projects, you need UX designers, and with projects that are more analog, you use service designers. At least that's the general idea within companies. And so a lot of companies that with COVID were closing like the bank branches or like the physical spaces, they were looking more for UX designers than service designers.
Very good. Next question, Brenda, do you have a question for somebody? I believe you have a question for Jamin.
Yes, it's for Jamin too. So he's saying, you talk about designers' expertise, about tangible future for the business, provide inspiration to change, etc. How provocative, designerly, or human-centered can those envisioned futures be while still being accepted by the C-suite? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can be, I mean, there's a relationship between those two things within the question of like how wild and how acceptable can it be. But I mean, I think going back to what Birgit said, in part of the role of design is to provide that push to show what could be possible, to create the conversation of what can be possible, but also to tie it to something real. You know, so if I'm presenting some entirely new business that has nothing to do with financial services, like it's probably going to be like, well, I don't know why you're even doing this. But if it's closely aligned with our space, if it's, you know, aligned in some way to a broader strategy or thinking that we're trying to do, and it starts, it's expressed in a way that is exciting and inspiring. I mean, I think that is the role, and sometimes you don't need to have like all the answers to get people inspired to want to see a thing happen. So that's also the role I've seen with design within Capital One, is that, you know, we'll push from, okay, we're thinking about something here now, we're going to show you what it looks like, you know, way beyond what you're thinking, and suddenly that gets people like really excited about wanting to get to there. So you start to get people coalesced around, how do we do that? And I think is a great that is a great role for design to help push the organization. And if we're already thinking, going back to what Gabrielle was saying, is like, we're already thinking about ethics throughout everything that we do, you know, building that into, you know, how we're showcasing that future, you know, also helps push the organization in a more ethical direction.
Gabriela, do you want to add something to the question?
No.
Okay, Birgit?
No.
Okay.
My internet is kind of weak. I hope I will stay on.
It's fine. Robin, I think you have one more question for the panel.
Yeah, this one was from Patrick, direct to me, and I don't know if Patrick is still on. Oh yeah, he's still on. Okay, great. So how do you not come across as a jack of all trades when you work in service and UX design? Every organization has different needs and uses a different process to solve them. Working in an organization, you are often tasked to solve problems outside the pure design space. How can one market themselves as a competent service designer? There's a few questions in there.
Yeah, and I was thinking that the report also touches on a topic of what we think of the T-shaped personality of the designers. Like, you have to have a general knowledge and then focus on one part, and that idea is being debated, and you can see like the importance of being a jack of all trades, like it said, and also like having a strength, a specialization, and it's hard when you have to be perfect at research and also perfect at management and also perfect at workshops or facilitating, and it's very hard to do everything. But it also depends like in the type of company that you're working at. And if you are in a company that it's probably small and it's a company like probably a startup, you have to tackle on all the challenges. And like Jamin was saying, in Capital One, if you have like a very big team and you can focus on one area that you're good at, I think that's also great.
Jamin, Birgit, you want to add to this? We have one more question.
So thanks for clarifying what jack of all trades is. Learn something new every day. I just remember like 5 years ago, we had this conversation about SIGs, no? Special interest groups. And we decided that there is a couple of topics for service design that are really hot. For example, the financial sector, the public sector, the health sector. And we started to create these impact reports on these sectors. And we also started to build Slack groups, and we tried to connect those people who were really interested to go deeper into specific areas. And I have to say, somehow the impact reports were nice, but these groups never really took up pace. Maybe they needed more facilitation, and nobody really took the responsibility to facilitate them. But I personally do believe that it helps to have a broad expertise in service design, but to also understand specific concerns of branches a bit better. If you are familiar with the industries, with the benchmarks that you might relate to, with the processes and structures that they use, I think that you then are a better service designer. But I'm not sure if everybody sees it that way.
Jamin, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've lost the original question, but there's definitely benefit in having industry experience. If you're working in an industry, there can also be benefit to not having that, but it depends on the role that you play. I know when I was a consultant, working with different clients, I think some of the value there is that you're bringing different perspective from different industries in, or you're not locked into what's possible because you know all of the compliance regulations already and aren't willing to challenge them. So there's pros and cons to it, but yeah, I mean, I think the spaces that Birgit highlighted, and going back to the question about where's another area, like, yeah, public service is increasingly more service design. In that, we had one of our service designers, recently move into that space. But it helps to develop expertise in that area. I know, if we're looking to hire people, sometimes it can be better, or it can give us some more confidence if they've got experience in a similar organization, because okay, they're not going to have to get up to speed with all of the particularities of a bank, and or even if it's healthcare, it's like, oh, maybe they understand the complexity of what we're dealing with versus a startup that is basically has very little constraints compared to what we deal with.
That's very clear. I think we have one more question, Brenda. It's a higher level question about research. Brenda?
Yes. So the question would be, how do you guys, or what is, based on your experience, what is your point of view on how to work with UX research as a service designer, but also if you're if the UX researcher should be doing a service design role, if that is expected for the company?
Birgit?
I'll leave that for Jamin first.
I mean, I think, again, it depends on how you split things up. I mean, even the framing of the question to me is like, well, I would expect a service designer to be able to do research. And what is a UX designer? Like, is that, or UX researcher, is that just digital stuff? Or are you talking about broadly doing research? So, I mean, I think that as a designer, as a modern designer, you need to be familiar with the different types of design that exists and how you overlap with them. And there's many cases where a particular design focus is actually multiple. So as a researcher, you probably have stronger strategic skills. As a design strategist, you probably have really strong research skills. You might even have like really strong service design skills. So it's there can be a lot of overlap, and I think that actually, in my perspective, like the T-shaped thing is a fallacy, because it's more. I'm sure someone said this before. It's more multiple verticals, and yeah, there might be still a horizontal, but I would expect hiring a service designer that they're very comfortable with research. If I'm hiring just a researcher, that person is going to be at a particularly high level of expertise and experience probably dealing more with quantitative data analysis in addition to qualitative data. So again, I just object to the question.
Birgit, do you want to follow up?
A very, very short remark. The UK government has done a very nice attempt to build these descriptions of what different types of service designers are there. And I totally, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You're frozen. And I think that's really nice that service design is not one big basket and everybody is the same in there. We will have people that are more specialized on service design research and others who are maybe better in prototyping, others who are really great in facilitating and inspirations. And then we have those who look more from the strategic and management perspective. So yeah, I think there will be a diversification of skills in the field.
Gabriela?
Yes, I wanted to add that you also have to think within the context of the company, what kind of research are you usually doing? And I like this visualization called the research funnel by Emma Bolton, that some companies usually do like very open, very wide explorations. And for that, you probably need more of a service designer that is open to see the big picture. And if you get closer to the day-to-day operations of a product team and you have to do like very quick iterations or very quick like usability testing, then probably the idea of having just a UX researcher makes more sense than someone that is able to look at the whole picture.
Could you allow me to share the screen for a second?
Yes, absolutely. You can share right now. It looks like people want to know about this.
Yeah, I will just very shortly show that one thing, and I will try to find the link. So this is what the UK government did. They differentiate between the associate service designer, the lead service designer, and the head of service design. And then they have for these different roles, the descriptions of essential skills, you know, and it's really interesting. I don't agree with everything, but it's the only attempt that I know to really systematically describe the different roles of service design within organizations. And I will rush and try to find the link.
Okay. What don't you agree with?
Oh, it's details. I mean, that would be another session. It's a long document.
Okay. So if you can share with us, that would be great. We'll make it available to everybody in the room. We are running a little bit out of time. We're actually at 1:30 now. So, of course, many thanks to all three of you. You guys have been wonderful. It's been a great first session. A lot of content. We could have been talking about this for 5 hours. There's no doubt about it. So many thanks, Birgit, Jamin, and Gabriela, for spending your time with you. As a quick reminder, this is going to be the first of 3 sessions. So stay tuned for announcement for the April and June sessions in Europe and Asia. We will work on the lineup with Brian and to make sure that everything is organized for the content to share. Again, thank you so much, Birgit, Jamin, Gabriela. You guys were wonderful. We're looking forward to hear back from you sometime soon, I hope.
Thank you. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And I hope we can see it again.
Absolutely. Stay safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.